My phone buzzed with one sentence that split something inside me clean. You weren't invited to Christmas dinner. Your brother's girlfriend doesn't like you. No hello. No apology. Just that. And this, after I had invested $120,000 into their collapsing business. No interest. No ownership papers. Just trust. My name is Danielle Harper. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever realized too late that your love was being rented, but your worth was never owned? I stared at that text for a full minute, thumb hovering, pulse hammering. Then I typed 2 letters. Okay. And with that, I became a ghost. Not one that haunts, but one that removes. I opened a folder labeled Family Expenses on my cloud drive. 157 receipts. All tied to them. Gas money. Invoices. Late fees I'd paid without being asked. Their inventory bills. Even the plumber they forgot to call until the pipes burst. Click. Delete. One by one. Not out of pettiness, but clarity. Because that text wasn't just a rejection. It was a revelation. I'd always been the problem solver. The wallet. The too intense sister. Who asked for basic respect and got silence in return. But this time, I didn't argue. I didn't call. I didn't ask who made the decision. I just canceled every automatic payment. Hooked into their business. Payroll? Frozen. Suppliers? Notified. Utilities? Due in 48 hours. They thought I would break. Instead, I disconnected life support. By midnight, my father had called 5 times. Mom left a voicemail in her carefully crafted worried tone. Sweetheart, there's been a misunderstanding. And my brother? He texted. You're seriously doing this over a dinner invite? No. Not over a dinner. Over a lifetime of being told. You're only welcome when you're useful. So, I powered down my phone, made a mug of cocoa, and watched snowfall from a place where no one could disinvite me from my own peace. Because they canceled my seat at the table. And I canceled the table's foundation. By morning, I woke to chaos I didn't have to clean. 12 missed calls. 6 texts from my mother. 2 from my father, both in all caps. Danielle, the electric bill didn't go through. Where's the supplier payment? They're threatening to walk. Your brother didn't know what she sent. It was her idea. We can fix this. Fix. That word again. Like I was a tool they could reach for. Whenever their neglect grew teeth. But I wasn't a wrench. I wasn't glue. And I sure as hell wasn't their financial oxygen anymore. I sipped my coffee slowly. The silence felt rich. Like I had bought myself back. My name wasn't on their business. But my money had been. And now? My silence was the loudest partner they ever ignored. My mother called again. I let it ring. Then she tried guilt. If the lights go off, we'll lose everything. I remember her voice just days ago, saying, just don't come. It'll make her uncomfortable. As if I was the inconvenience, not the woman who funded their failures, while they handed me crumbs of tolerance. So I emailed the accountant. Effective immediately, I withdraw all informal investments in Harper Family Mercantile. Please notify all vendors of my exit and redirect outstanding balances to Raymond and Patricia Harper. Danielle Harper. A clean, sharp exit. Not angry. Not loud. Just final. And while they scrambled, I cleaned out the one thing I'd never dared touch before. My emotional debt. I unfollowed them on socials. Deleted the group chat. Blocked every number but Ava's, my niece. The only soul in that house who'd ever said, you matter. That afternoon, a letter arrived. Handwritten. From my father. Don't let one dinner destroy a lifetime of support. I almost laughed. A lifetime of support? From me to them. They fed off my loyalty and starved me of belonging. So, I tore the letter in half. Dropped it in the shredder. Because their business wasn't the only thing collapsing. The illusion that I owed them forever? That crumbled too. They stopped calling by day 3. Silence fell. But it wasn't peace for them. It was panic. Their store hours changed suddenly. Closed for renovations, the sign read. Funny. There was no money for renovations. Not without me. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I just watched, quietly, calmly, as the very structure I'd kept alive on my back began to rot without warning. Then the email came from their landlord. Hi Danielle. I understand you've handled rent previously. The January payment is 2 weeks past due. Can you confirm your continued involvement? I responded in one line. Not involved. Please contact the legal owners directly. He replied. Copy that. Forwarding eviction notice today. That was the moment it became real for them. Not when I said, okay. Not when I deleted the receipts. But when the lights dimmed, and there was no one left to flip the switch back on. My brother texted me later that night. You really let a girl you don't even know come between us? I stared at the screen. This wasn't about her. It never was. It was about every single time they chose someone else's comfort over my existence. They didn't forget to include me. They excluded me on purpose. Because I didn't fit the image they wanted to project. I was the one who worked too hard, spoke too directly, earned too much, took up too much space. I made them uncomfortable, not because I failed, but because I stopped needing their permission to succeed. So I blocked the number. And that night, I wrote a letter, not to them, to myself. Dear Danielle, you gave more than they ever thanked you for. And when they dismissed you, you chose dignity over desperation. You don't owe anyone a second chance. When they never cared enough to show up for your first. I sealed it in an envelope. Put it in a box labeled, read when you start to doubt yourself. Because the only investment I was making now was in my own healing. Let the business fall. Let the lights stay off. Let the silence grow. They didn't want me at the table. So I built one where only love gets a seat. The knock came on a Thursday. Soft. Then loud. Then desperate. I didn't answer right away. I just stood in the hallway, watching them through the peephole. My parents. No flowers. No apology cake. Just two people who used to own me by guilt. Now standing in the cold, with nothing left to leverage. I opened the door halfway. Didn't invite them in. My mother looked smaller than I remembered. Worn. Worried. Still holding on to the same face she used when she wanted me to feel like the ungrateful one. Sweetheart, we just need a little help. Your father's been trying to save the business. And I know we said things we didn't mean. I nodded slowly. Let her finish. My father stayed quiet, not out of shame, but because he was doing the math in his head. How much would it take to get me back? What strings could they pull this time? But they forgot. I'd cut them all. I stepped outside, closed the door behind me. No warmth. No pretense. You didn't forget Christmas, I said. You erased me. You chose someone's opinion of me over your own blood. And now you're only here because your accounts went dry. My mother's eyes glossed. But I didn't mistake that for regret. It was fear. Fear of losing the resource, not the daughter. Please, she whispered. We can't do this without you. I held her gaze. You should have thought of that before you let someone who just met me convince you I didn't belong in your home. They stood there, silent, finally facing the weight of what they'd thrown away. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like a bad daughter. I felt like a free woman. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just turned, opened my door, and said the calmest words I've ever spoken. This home is built on love and respect. You won't find what you're looking for here. And I closed the door, not to punish, but to protect what I've finally begun to build. A life where my worth isn't borrowed, bartered, or silenced. They didn't show up again after that. No more knocks. No more texts. Just silence. But this time, I didn't feel abandoned. I felt clear. Because when I closed that door, I wasn't just shutting them out. I was stepping into a life that didn't shrink to fit their comfort. I stopped explaining myself. Stopped softening my voice. Stopped justifying why I was always the one left out. Then expected to fix everything anyway. I used to say, maybe they don't know how much it hurt. Now I say, they did. and they did it anyway. I used to wonder if they'd ever change. Now I know. I changed. And that was enough. I took a walk that Sunday through the old neighborhood, past the store I'd once saved. The windows were boarded now. A for lease sign hanging crooked, like the weight of all their bad decisions finally caught up to the glass. People used to stop me in that neighborhood and say, "You're such a good daughter." And I was. But being a good daughter doesn't mean being a doormat with a debit card. So I stopped. Took one last photo of the place. Not for memory. For proof. Proof that walking away wasn't cruelty. It was survival. I printed that photo later that night, pinned it to my vision board. Next to it, a note. Never shrink for people who only grow when they stand on your back. Ava saw it. She asked what the photo was. I told her. That's the last thing I ever paid for that didn't love me back. She nodded, quietly taking it in, like even at 10 years old, she understood. And right there in our little kitchen, we made a new tradition. Every time we let something go that hurt us, we light a small candle. So we lit one, watched it flicker, watched it fade. And as the smoke rose, so did a quiet promise inside me. I will never again apologize for leaving rooms that let me burn, while others stayed warm. They always thought I'd come back, that I'd feel guilty, that I'd miss the noise, the obligation, the illusion of family. But I didn't miss the tension, the unspoken rules, the way love always came with invoices and side comments. They thought I'd cave by spring. I didn't. I blossomed. Because sometimes, peace isn't something you find, it's what finally grows. When you stop watering the people who drain you. One morning, a bank alert hit my email. The joint account I once co-signed for them. Frozen by court order. They were being sued. Unpaid vendors. Back taxes. A business built on IOUs. And one daughter who had finally said no. I sat on my balcony, watching the sun warm the city below me. No panic. No flinch. Just stillness. Ava walked out, wrapped in her blanket, holding her sketchpad. "They're in trouble, aren't they?" she asked, eyes too wise for her age. "They are," I said. "But not because of me." She paused. "Do you feel bad?" I looked her in the eyes. "No, baby. I feel free. Because for once, their collapse wasn't my responsibility. I didn't answer the calls. Didn't reply to the "we didn't mean it" emails. Didn't entertain the sudden "we miss you" messages. That came with court dates and overdue bills. You see, when they cut me from Christmas, to impress a woman who'd known them 6 months, they also cut the bridge. To the only person keeping them afloat. They chose to be loyal to appearances. To convenience. To people who liked the version of me that didn't exist. So, I vanished. And, in my silence, the truth echoed louder than any apology they never gave. No more investments. No more saving face. No more rescuing people who would sell your dignity for a compliment. I'd done my time in their story. Now I was finally living mine. One that didn't begin and end with family obligations, but with something far deeper. Self-respect. And the more I chose it, the quieter the noise became. Until the only thing left was my own voice, whispering, "You were never hard to love. They just never learned how." Spring turned into summer, and with it came a letter. Thick envelope. Handwritten. No return address. But I knew the handwriting like a scar. It was from my mother. Inside, a plea. Long, rambling. Manipulative. Dressed in just enough sorrow to sound sincere. "We've made mistakes. Your father is sick with stress. Your brother regrets everything. Your niece asks about you all the time. They never once said, 'We hurt you,' only that they were now hurting. And could I come fix it?" Again. The kicker? A postscript in my father's blunt tone. "You're still part of this family, whether you like it or not." I read it once. Then again. Then I stood up, walked outside, and set the letter on fire. Watched it curl into ash. On the same balcony where I used to take panicked calls, trying to keep their business from sinking. I whispered, I'm not your safety net anymore. And it felt holy. That week, I had them removed from every lingering tie. Small Blue Diamond closed the joint savings account. Small Blue Diamond updated the power of attorney. Small Blue Diamond changed the emergency contact on Ava's school forms. Small Blue Diamond cleared every digital fingerprint they had left on my finances. It wasn't revenge. It was protection. Because people who say, "You'll always be family," only seem to remember that when they're desperate for what you can still give them. I blocked every number. Set my inbox to auto-delete any message from their domains. My voicemail now says, "If you're calling to reconnect, know that I've already made peace." And that peace doesn't include reopening old wounds. Ava asked why we were cutting them off again. I told her the truth. Because boundaries don't mean we hate them. They mean we finally love ourselves enough to say, "This far and no further." We baked a cake that night. Chocolate. With extra sprinkles. Not for a birthday. Just because we could. And as we danced in our little kitchen, I realized they used to be the storm. Now they're just weather I don't live in anymore. 1 year. That's how long it took for the grief to turn into something softer. Not forgetfulness. Not forgiveness. Just distance. Not the kind measured in miles, but in growth. I sat across from the clerk at the courthouse, papers in hand. Her eyebrows lifted. "Changing your last name, Miss Harper?" I shook my head. "No. Changing my story." Because Harper wasn't just a name. It was the chain on every debt I was never owed. The signature that signed away my silence. The brand I carried. On every check, every favor, every forgotten birthday. But not anymore. I signed the new one. Danielle Reeve. Simple. Sharp. Mine. Reeve, like to stitch together. Because that's what I had done. Taken scraps of hurt and sewn a new life. One that fit without apology. I walked out of that building. With no family behind me, but more freedom than I'd ever known. No more saving people who only remembered me when they were drowning. No more dinners I wasn't welcome at. No more conditional love. My daughter Ava greeted me at home with a bouquet of paper flowers she made. "Happy New Name Day," she said. "You don't belong to them anymore." I pulled her into my arms. "Baby, I never did." We baked cookies, watched old cartoons, lit a candle, not for mourning, but for becoming. Later that night, I opened a blank journal, wrote one sentence on the first page. "This is where the real story starts." And I meant it. Not because they stopped calling. Not because I changed my name, but because I no longer needed to be loved by people who couldn't even see me. I am the woman they couldn't break. The silence they couldn't shame. The daughter who didn't burn the bridge. Just walked across it and never looked back. No revenge. No courtroom drama. No public meltdown. Just a woman who said, "Okay," and then quietly reclaimed her entire life.